From the News Channel 5 Network, this is Morning Line with Nick Barris.
Good morning, everyone. Thanks for joining us on Morning Line on this Wednesday. Nick Barris here. It's good to have you. We've talked on a variety of topics on this program over the years where we hear from viewers like yourself calling, asking legal questions. We have certainly many lawyers that come on this program, but so many of us, unless you happen to be in a case where it's a contingency and the lawyers take the case because you'll be reimbursed if they win. I mean, sometimes you just need to hire a lawyer for any number of things, and not everyone can afford it. Is there a way to get legal representation or legal questions, answered if you're in that type of pickle? Yes, there is. We have Legal Aid Society, which is a wonderful organization that helps a lot of people. As you imagine, they're very busy and involved in an awful lot of things. But we thought we'd talk about that this morning, not only the big umbrella about how Legal Aid Society works and how you can seek help if you think you need it, but some of the projects they're involved with and helping people right now. We'll take your phone calls, 737-7587. And we've got someone from Legal Aid Society. Yes, he's an attorney. As I say, we have attorneys on this show. Tom Szaniawski. Did I get it? Tom Szaniawski's with us.
You got it.
It's nice to have you on, Tom.
Thanks very much for having me.
It's a pleasure. So you are a lawyer?
I am a lawyer. I'm a staff attorney with the Community Reentry Group at Legal Aid Society here in Nashville.
Okay, and we're going to get into community reentry and how that applies to folks getting out of jail or prisons and the role that you play in that. But first, if you don't mind, for our viewers, as an umbrella view, talk about Legal Aid Society, how it works, and how someone can seek help from you. And I'm sure you get a lot of calls, and you have to kind of triage it and decide who you can and can't help. How does it work?
Well, the way it works is that we're a non-for-profit. We receive our funding from various sources, and we have certain requirements attached. So in order to qualify for legal aid services, one generally must make no more than 125% of the federal poverty level.
Okay.
Currently, that amounts to about $17,000 a year.
So you can't make more than $17,000 a year.
That number changes if you have more than one person in the household, but that's our threshold. Our mission statement really is to help indigent folks. In other words, people who are in a position where they desperately need legal help, but they obviously, can't afford to pay for a lawyer. If you're making $10,000 a year, you don't have the resources. So that's basically just the qualification, and then we provide a panoply of legal services, including not only reentry, but family law, consumer protection, tax law, immigration law. So we have kind of a whole menu of services that we offer. We have what's called our Volunteer Lawyers Program, which is essentially a network of private attorneys with whom we've worked and who hold themselves out as...
They do pro bono.
Yeah, exactly. So we have kind of an established outside network, and what we'll do is for issues that we can't deal with in-house, we'll refer people to the Volunteer Lawyers Program, and they will then kind of shop the case and try to get it in front of an attorney who's willing to do some pro bono work on the client's behalf. So between what we do in-house and our access to the Volunteer Lawyers Program, obviously we can't help everyone. As you correctly note, our resources are limited. But that's kind of an overview, and we're the largest provider of free legal aid. We cover 48 counties in Middle Tennessee. We have 8 offices. So for folks who are anywhere within that service area, we welcome their calls to give them more information, set up appointments, do intake interviews, things like that.
That's great. It's just a wonderful thing to have that available because people need representation. We'll put the number up throughout the program, but it's also worth noting one thing you did not mention is criminal. You don't handle criminal, and the reason for that, if you're indigent and you're charged with a crime and going to trial, you get a court-appointed defense attorney. There's public defender's office does that. That's not what Legal Aid Society does.
We don't. Our big carve-outs, and again, these are a function of following our guidelines as provided by our funders. We do not handle criminal law, meaning anything from an arrest or an indictment through to the time of release from prison. We don't get involved in any criminal law matters. Another one under the family law umbrella is that we do not do child support matters, and we don't do child custody matters. So those are the kind of 3 big carve-outs. But
okay, I'm glad. I just wanted to specify because people may call about that, and that's not in your realm. Would you say, in the broad array of topics you do represent on, what are some of the most common cases you will handle typically?
The most common situations that we see in the Community Reentry Group Essentially, our purpose is to assist folks who are transitioning back into their communities. And oftentimes these folks are in the transition process and they realize that they have some legal issues. The common ones that we see for our reentry clients.
You're talking about individuals that are getting out of prisons or jails.
That's correct.
Okay, and that's what your specialty is, correct?
That's correct. That's what
yeah, let's talk about that then. Yeah, in this day and age, there are folks that get out, either paroled, they've served their time,
right,
and they come out and they're probably indigent because they haven't been working, they don't have much money.
Right.
So what are the hurdles they face?
The main hurdles that folks initially face are court costs, expungements, and getting driver's licenses reinstated. And all of those three fit together. One of the things that people don't do is move past the expungement phase. Essentially, court costs are the beginning because if one has outstanding court costs, one is not eligible to have any expungements done.
Okay.
And typically unpaid court costs are a good reason for driver services to suspend your driver's license or revoke it.
So you got to pay that court cost before anything happens. By the way, when you say expungement, that means clearing your record.
Yeah,
if you're able to expunge it so it's not on your record, which makes it easier for you to find a job.
Right, it's removing, and there's only specific charges that can be expunged, but yes, we want to remove that information from their criminal backgrounds so that when they have an employer or a potential landlord, for example, and they review a record, there can be a lot of stale information on there. A lot of folks don't realize that even if their charges are dismissed, that information is still on their record. A lot of people don't know that even if they successfully complete a probation period, that will also show up on their record. So there are, and this is in addition to expungements of actual convictions, which we can get to in a second. But basically, the first thing we want to do is remove kind of the junk noise from the record and remove all that stale information. Again, it's better to have a half-page record than it is to have a 3-page record, which you have to explain away. And again, so one must first address court costs, and the way that we do that is one can file an application to the court basically saying, I have this much in court costs, these are my expenses and my income, I'm not able financially to pay, and this is holding up the rest of my life. Would the court be willing to waive the court costs? In Davidson County, that our experience has been that happens the overwhelming majority of the time, is that the courts will waive the costs. Okay. So we deal with step one is getting the costs out of there, and that lets us work with driver's licenses in situations where folks' primary reason for suspension or revocation is unpaid court costs. Mm-hmm. We get rid of those court costs, we send that info to the driver services, and they will basically provide for reinstatement of the driver's license.
Which you need a car to go get a job.
As we all know, as we all know, to get to a job interview, let alone commute to a job regularly, driving privileges are very important.
These issues have been in the way of folks getting out for years.
Absolutely.
But I'm just curious, in this day and age, if there is more motivation for everyone to see these things get expedited, simply because we know how hard it is right now for employers to find good employees.
Right.
And it does seem, and I've heard this from more than one individual who works with these people, that they're hiring more than ever before.
Right.
These former inmates who've served their time and gotten out that sometimes had trouble. There's opportunities out there for them that hasn't been there in recent years, isn't there?
That's true. There is a statewide movement to improve and streamline the expungement process. Under Governor Lee's initiative, they held clinics with clerks on site who could file paperwork on site. They had their initial event in Nashville, and they put on similar events in both Memphis and Knox counties. So the idea is essentially to bring access to folks, because some of the problems are folks don't know about legal aid at all. Folks don't know that they have access to certain legal tools that can help them find employment. Folks often don't even know what's on their criminal records.
Do you think this initiative is in part driven from employers saying, hey, we would like to have a larger pool to draw from, and if we can get more expungements and it makes it easier for us to hire these individuals, let's get this done? I mean, do you think in the background that could have something to do with it? I mean, it adds to the potential employee pool.
Right.
If you have more applicants that, you know, can qualify.
Yeah, and I mean, I think objectively having a bigger pool of qualified candidates is great. Obviously, putting people back to work not only puts money back into the economy, but also reduces recidivism rates. And just to put things into a larger context, what's emerging is a trend towards what are called clean slate laws. This is an initiative that started in Pennsylvania and has been adopted by 11 or 12 states now. And what the clean slate laws provide for is essentially automation and streamlining of the process, so that if somebody has a dismissed charge, it's automatically removed. If somebody finishes a probationary period, the information will be automatically removed.
Where does that stand in Tennessee?
Tennessee has not yet ratified this type of...
Has it been talked about here? Are some lawmakers looking at it, to your knowledge? Is that...
To my knowledge, I mean, I don't want to speculate, but this is an emerging trend. It seems to be moving westward from Pennsylvania.
But that clean slate law, if there are laws that do that, it kind of dovetails with what you just described, what Governor Lee is talking about, is trying to work better toward the expungement process, right? I mean, they kind of overlap, right?
Sure. And I think that, you know, that's the main way to handle expungement. You know, just by example, in Davidson County, you can walk down to the clerk's office, you can tell them your name, give them your birthday, you can say that you're working on an expungement and that you would like your criminal records. They will basically give you your record, they will review it, they'll tell you what is at that time eligible for expungement. They will print out the forms for all of the expungements, and the applicant will just sign it and turn it in. In Davidson County, there are no fees for this. That's one way that an applicant can do it. And that's a pretty user-friendly process in Davidson County.
Listen, let's take a break on that. When we come back, we've got some phone calls already coming in. We'll take some calls.
Sounds good.
And we'll continue. We're going to go into much more detail on this. It's very interesting. We'll take a break. When we come back, more with Legal Aid Society right after this.